If you're charged with a drug crime in Huntsville, Alabama, can you find out the identity of the informant? The answer is that under some circumstances you can. But part of the answer is that even though you can, you may not want to. Let me explain. Prosecutors are very careful about trying to protect the identity of the informant, as are drug cops. Part of that is that, number one, dead men tell no tales. So they want to be careful about that. I had a client who was working as an informant. He chose to do so because he really had no other option. He probably would have gone to prison for a very long time. Unfortunately for him, the fellow who he was giving information on found out, and he was attacked by that guy who tried to use the sharp end of a claw hammer to kill him. He narrowly escaped being killed. And it's just that kind of reason that prosecutors are cautious about this kind of thing. But under some circumstances, a defendant and his lawyer can discover who the confidential informant is. If you and your lawyer decide you want to do that, your lawyer will file a motion with the court asking for the identity of that person of the informant to be disclosed. And the judge will conduct a hearing, and your lawyer will have to produce some sort of evidence and some sort of arguments as to why this information should be disclosed. And the judge will consider these factors and determine whether or not it's appropriate to disclose the identity of the informant. Now, there's a bunch of different reasons. I'm not going to go into all of the reasons here, but let me talk about some of the basic reasons. One of them would be, does the informant possess some sort of information that may tend to show that your client is innocent? And if that's a pretty good reason for the judge to say, no, I'm going to disclose this person's identity. Another reason might be, what kind of defense is the accused person, is the defendant raising, and is it necessary for that defense to reveal the identity of the informant? Is that important for the defense? If it is, that may outweigh the prosecutor's interest in keeping that person hidden. Another reason is, was the transaction between the parties a hand-to-hand transaction? Were they together? Is it likely that the accused person, that the defendant actually knows who it is, and is revealing this person really going to have minimal impact? Again, another factor that the judge will consider. Another factor is, well, to what degree was the informant involved in the crime himself? Sometimes an informant it may be argued that the informant was the real heavy, or he was more involved than the accused person. And the judge will look at any kind of factors that the lawyers raise and the arguments back and forth, and he will make a decision as to whether or not it is appropriate to reveal the identity of that informant. Now, that said, let's say that your lawyer and you have a case where the identity can be that there's a real good chance that the judge is going to rule in your favor. That doesn't necessarily mean that you want to launch that arrow and try to find that out. Well, why? The reason is that, at least in Madison County, the district attorney's office has a rule, it probably applies in other counties as well, but they have a rule that says, if you're going to force us to try to disclose who that informant is, we're not going to make any deals for your client. That doesn't mean that your person can't plead guilty, but they're not going to plead guilty with any kind of a plea agreement or any kind of plea deal. If they want to plead guilty, they're throwing themselves on the mercy of the court with no help from the DAs. So if you have a client who's thinking about trying to negotiate, you don't want to launch that arrow because it may cause more harm than good. Now, if you have a client who's hard for trial, if my client says, you know what, I don't want a deal, I'm innocent, I just want a trial, it doesn't matter. Then yeah, if that's going to help them, we're going to file that motion. Now, I recognize different lawyers may have somewhat different opinions than me. That's my view. I hope you find these videos to be helpful and informative. Of course, if you're in a legal jam and you want our help, just give us a call. Our phone number should be below and our contact information. Thank you for watching.